Welcome to this week of Missouri Politics. Busy week of Missouri politics, late nights, and a person that I think many folks say may have the most raw talent in the Missouri Democratic Party, State Senator Brian Williams. Welcome back to the show.
Scott, it's great to be here.
I was there with you till 10 after 3 Wednesday night. Clean Missouri debated. There was some talk. It was going to be the 24-hour thing, and you've lived through a few of those. This one was not. Tell me what happened in the Senate Wednesday night and into Thursday morning.
Well, it went pretty late, as we know. It's simple. We have a duty, and that duty is to uphold the interests of the voters, and that's what our caucus was committed to. And I think it was also a good opportunity for a showing of what 8 members of the Missouri Democratic Caucus can do.
Well, break that into your fight, though. So I've always thought the best argument against Clean Missouri from a procedure level was you did take 2 things that are, I guess, related, but I think a fair person could say were different, redistricting and ethics reform, and merge them together. And the Republicans went to court on this. The court ruled you could do that. I thought the Republicans were a little disingenuous because they took those 2 things and merged them together into a bill. To me, I think a reasonable person could come down the argument these are separate questions, and the Republicans made that argument, but when they put their proposal they want to put before the voters, they merged them together.
Yeah, I think it was very interesting to just see that process. But, the argument, and I think our Democratic leader, Senator Walsh, made it very clear. We have a duty, and that's to uphold the will of the people. And I think that's what this conversation was about for Democrats.
Well, during this conversation, there was one of the more interesting inquiries I've heard in the Senate in a long time. You were speaking with Senator Emery, who is a very dignified and respected man. You're talking about abortion rights. And you made the case very, I thought, articulately, but aggressively for abortion rights in the state of Missouri. Ed Emery, who's a very dignified man, he made the case very passionately against. And I thought it was one, in the Senate, it's interesting when everybody stops and starts watching. And during your inquiry, in a 11-hour filibuster, whatever it was, people don't listen all the time. But your inquiry stopped the chamber, and the 2 of you discussed abortion policy, and I think walked away with everybody feeling like that was 2 serious people, and you went to bat for the pro-choice community very aggressively.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of democracy, and that's the beauty of the Senate.
It was the Senate, yeah.
I'm a firm believer in decorum, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for Senator Emery. Sure. But we had a fundamental disagreement. Hands down, I believe that women should make the decision that they want with their body, and I don't think government should intervene on that. Senator Emery had a different belief with that, and I respect that as colleagues, but I believe that that's just a direction that our state shouldn't go in, and to not view rape or incest as a problem in terms of abortion and viewing them as being mutually exclusive is wrong, in my opinion.
But I did think it was interesting. Senator Emery did not back down from that position he believes that you should not have abortion in case of rape and incest, and you went respectfully, articulately on both sides, but you went very hard for the other side. When you're sitting there and you're in that debate, you start noticing people watching. I thought that was one of the better abortion debates I've ever heard as far as being respectful, and it was really the best of the Missouri Senate.
Yeah, we just lay out the facts and agree to disagree. Ed laid out his beliefs, I laid out mine. I still firmly believe that we should not be intervening in the decision that women make with their body. And I believe that this abortion bill that the Missouri Senate passed last session is bad for the state of Missouri.
Is the Senate going to have to PQ this Clean Missouri alternative getting to the ballot?
Well, I'll tell you what, I went last session, so I have yet to witness a PQ as a state senator, and I'm optimistic that with our leadership in the Democratic side and Republican side, I think we can figure some of these things out, hopefully. But if not, we'll have to see where it goes.
Speaking of that Senate caucus, you're down to 8. You held your own. When doing the math, Senate time would say it was 13 hours, but really Senate time it was like 10 hours. I mean, that 2 o'clock start time is always sort of a moving target, but still, I thought held the floor very well with a reduced capacity.
We have a tremendous caucus. I mean, it's no secret. We have some great folks that's on our side. Senator Arthur, Senator Rizzo, Senator May came on the floor and did a tremendous job. Senator Sifton and Senator Walsh, what you have to understand is that those are folks that have been there and they have been able to really set precedent for how we operate as a caucus. But just to see really the future of our caucus really hold the floor and stand firm behind beliefs and be able to really engage and
Senator
show.
Shoup held the floor for a long time.
Senator Shoup did a phenomenal job, and I think any success that we had as a caucus, any individual success that I've had within this past session and beyond would be because of my Democratic colleagues that work so hard on the floor.
Mentioned Senator Curls and Senator Holzman now moving into the executive branch. That created an opening on appropriations. And you, in your first term, your first 2 years, are now on the Appropriations Committee. That's a big deal, not just for you, but for St. Louis.
Yeah, I'm grateful that my Democratic colleagues and leadership felt that it was important to put me on that committee. It's a very important committee when you think about how we appropriate funds throughout the state. One thing that I'm very committed to is not only ensuring that St. Louis does well, but I believe if St. Louis has the resources, it trickles down and creates an economic driver for the entire state of Missouri. And that's one thing I care about, is making sure that we appropriate money in this state that benefits everyone and not just St. Louis. So I'm optimistic and I'm excited.
But it is a big deal for St. Louis to have somebody in that room and those conversations are made about where spending happens. St. Louis having an increased voice on that, and a voice that could be there for 7 years, that could be a very big deal for St. Louis.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity, and like I said, I'm grateful. Had it not been for Senate leadership, caucus leadership, believing in my ability to be a leader on that committee, and I'm excited to work with my colleagues on both sides.
Well, now here's the interesting part. We're talking about Medicaid expansion, which is something you've said on this show you supported. That Appropriations Committee seat is a blessing, but it could be a curse. You look at that state budget, if Medicaid expansion passes, which I think most folks believe it will, you're going to have to find some money. Give me the case for Medicaid expansion, and then tell me where you're going to pay for it.
I mean, well, hands down, I think the state has an opportunity to no longer leave money on the table. Just look at some of what you would consider strange bedfellows behind Medicaid expansion. I mean, you have Washington University involved, hospitals are on board. It's just so many people who normally manage care is involved. I think that it's a great opportunity for the state. Another thing, when you're just thinking about that conversation around women's health, to think now, if we expand Medicaid, prenatal services that are not offered to women in the state of Missouri, they will have opportunities to be able to get health care services during what I would consider one of the most critical times during the pregnancy, and not just after the baby is born. So I think that this is a great opportunity for Missouri. I think it's going to help Missourians. I think it's going to be a great economic driver long term. And I'm optimistic to see where it goes.
Okay, let me ask you the question, though. So Medicaid expansion supporters say that this will save the money state in the long run. I think there's a case for that. But the first 2 to 3 years, you're not going to see those savings right away. It's going to take an investment from the state. Is that investment worth it? And do you believe that that money will show up in year 1 back to the state?
I think anytime you're investing in our state, in the lives of maintaining healthy people, is always worth it. It's just like education. We spend a tremendous amount of money in education. I don't view healthcare as being anything different. So
you're going to have some sharpened pencils in that Appropriations Committee.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to having some really constructive conversations around it. But I believe this is a good opportunity for Missouri.
Let's talk about something fun, the presidential race. We're going to have Ryan Hawkins on. The Bloomberg campaign is going to have a different strategy that comes in late. As a person that follows politics, interesting to watch and see how that develops. Have you selected a candidate for the Democratic nomination?
I have. It'll be a Democratic nominee.
Break this down for me, though. Your district is like, you wonder why politicians have websites like Who Reads That? Your district is Who Reads That. You have a highly educated district, highly politically active district. When the candidate's there, a candidate like an Elizabeth Warren, she probably would play very well in your district, but very few in the state. Doug Beck running for state senate in South County, probably that could make his run a little harder.
Well, it's to be determined, but I will tell you this. I do have a district where the scope in terms of political ideology and who they may be supporting is probably unprecedented and far from monolithic. So we'll have to just see, but I can tell you right now, what can't happen is what happened in 2016. The party has to be united behind whoever the Democratic nominee is, and if we are not united as a party, then we're going to get exactly what we got
Your district is a very Democrat district. It's not so much about who they'll vote for in November, it's will they turn out. The candidates that are seriously being discussed, is there one of those candidates that could not achieve turnout in your district that they need to be competitive in Missouri? No one's going to turn out Barack Obama levels, but can they turn out enough to make Nicole Galloway competitive and some of the down-ticket statewide ballot races competitive?
Yeah, I think it could be some candidates that can do that, but the biggest thing is just making sure that we encourage voters to get out and vote in general. And if we encourage that, hey, get out and vote, exercise your constitutional right. I think that's going to benefit any candidate that's on the ballot for president, and I think it's going to benefit any candidate that's on the ballot statewide in Missouri.
Senator Brian Williams, after a very long week, you earned that paycheck this week in the state Senate. Thank you for joining us on This Week in Missouri
Hey,
Politics.
Scott, thanks for having me, and it's always great to be here with you.
We'll be right back with our opinion maker panel. Carl Bearden and takes on the only Republican on the panel, but he can handle it after this.
All across Missouri, our new car and truck dealers are building strong local economies. When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000 Missouri families who rely on the auto industry for good-paying local jobs. You're also helping fund our communities, schools, first responders, and our roads, because dealers generate millions of dollars in tax revenue. Missouri's automobile dealers have been the foundation of our communities for generations, and for generations to come. The Missouri Automobile Dealers Association.
Your energy needs are changing. That's why at Ameren, Missouri, we're not waiting on the future. We're building it with the Smart Energy Plan, advancing thousands of projects across the state, helping reduce emissions through cleaner energy sources, boost reliability with self-healing equipment, and better withstand storms with new composite poles. Moving Missouri forward and bringing us all a little closer together. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics. Opinion maker panel time. Mark Dalton with the Carpenters Union. Welcome back, sir.
Thanks for having me again.
Carl Bearden, United Missouri, the largest conservative group in the state, correct?
That's correct.
Welcome back, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Ryan Hawkins, Democratic operative, senior advisor for the Bloomberg campaign, is that correct?
That's correct.
Senior advisor, very ominous.
Very ominous, yes.
And Michelle Sherod, running for state senate in the 5th senatorial district with the very vocal support of the incumbent, Senator Jamila Nasheed. Welcome to the show for the first time.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
A little bit about yourself as you launch the campaign here.
Well, I've spent the past 20 years working behind the scenes for Senator Claire McCaskill, first starting out as her deputy, working in the auditor's office, then becoming her deputy state auditor, reviewing hundreds of audits, reviewing the tax rates for the 5,000 political subdivisions in the state. And when she became the United States Senator, I had the honor to come here to St. Louis and open up her St. Louis office here on Del Mar, and met with folks all across our region, from our rural counties that surround St. Louis to St. Louis City, meeting with folks who knocked on the front door asking, can you help me? 9 times out of 10, we had to refer them to a local agency or a not-for-profit that might be able to help them, meeting with our local leaders, business leaders, connecting people to resources. So spent 8 years working as a treasurer, and after taking care of my parents, and both of them, my father-in-law and my mother, in our home, and they both passed, and I thought it was time for me to step back out here and give back. So
When you see the senator, tell her Twitter account's fantastic.
I'll let her know that.
Carl Bearden, polling comes out this week in the governor's race. American Viewpoint, top in polling firm, came out. The first one was the Missouri primary. They polled Parson Grinders. I think word's out now that's probably not going to happen, but it was like a 56-35 something. The governor was doing very well. Were you surprised by the margin the governor had?
Not really. I mean, you look at where we're at today and where we're at in the race. You look at the circumstances. I don't think he's really made too many mistakes, so I don't think it was a surprise.
54-36, I'll admit, it was a bit of a surprise to me. I think maybe the real takeaway was Twitter and Facebook are tremendous tools. Some people watch this show on those mediums, but they're not a snapshot of where real Missourians are.
Right. Yeah, and I think Carl's right. I think governor's doing 100 times better than his predecessor, and
polling would reflect that, right?
Yeah, and he's not making any mistakes, any big mistakes. So,
what'd you think? I mean, I would have thought the margin was a little tighter on that.
Well, I'm going to bounce off of what you just said a second ago. The bar was pretty low for not making any mistakes. All right, so saying the governor's doing great is saying hey, listen, I didn't do this. So I think that most voters are going to look at this and remember that Governor Parsons was on the same ballot as Governor Greitens. It is going to be one of these races that people are going to say, hey, what have you done for me lately? And they're going to also remember that this is an accidental governor, and we're going to find out if he can hold his chops in a general election.
Well, the poll also showed that Nicole Gallo would beat Eric Greitens by a point as the race stood now. I was a little surprised by that too. I mean, that was a pretty good showing for the state auditor.
I don't think we can be surprised by Nicole's showing. Nicole has proven herself to be a capable candidate. She is the only female elected statewide official and the only Democrat statewide. I think there's a lot of support for her, and I think there's room for that margin to close as we get to know Nicole a little bit better.
When you flip a coin over against Governor Parsons, she's down 18 points.
Right.
I'm not sure that if you're the Gallery folks, you're surprised by that.
Right.
But you'd rather not be down 18 points, right?
Right, but I think that there's room to grow. And I think that being in January with almost a year ahead of us, and she's the auditor. And the auditor does not the most sexy work, but she does.
But it's all positive work to the public.
It's all positive work, right? So let people get to know her. Let them see her out in the public. I mean, she is fantastic when she's one-on-one, when she's in a group. You know, let people see that let daughters see that, hey, I can do this. And I think she's got a great future ahead of her.
Oh, I agree with that. But I mean, it is, you want to be the person that's up 18 points in the poll, right? I mean, that's if you get to pick. I do think the race starts off with a huge advantage to Governor Parsons.
Yeah,
right?
and I've seen other polls unrelated to either campaign, and the governor enjoys a wide margin of support. So I think it's his to lose at this point, but that's where you lose it, is when you take that attitude.
Mark, is that I would say that's probably a fair assessment, is probably Governor Parsons to lose.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. I think also a lot of it has to do who is on the Democratic side in the presidential election.
I think we're going to get to that, but I want to get a prediction out of you. Is Eric Greitens running for governor this time or not?
I don't think so. Not this time, but sometime in the future.
I want to get Carl's last. I'm looking forward. Do you think he takes it? Do you think those numbers scare him? I don't think the numbers scare him.
I don't think the numbers scare him. I think that Eric Greitens will do what Eric Greitens thinks is best for Eric Greitens.
That's true. What do you think?
I don't think
You're a St. Louisan, just like Eric Greitens. What do you think he does?
I don't think he jumps in at this point.
I said on our midweek update that I probably had an invitation. I don't think he does. What do you think happens?
I don't think he's on the ballot this year.
I think that the most telling part was this year, and I agree with you. Ryan Hawkins, you were working with the Bloomberg campaign here in Missouri. This is I'm very intrigued by this. It looks like his strategy, maybe I'm wrong, is that some of these early states, he's not where people have been working and canvassing these states for 6 months, 2 years, whatever.
Right.
He's coming in and maybe going to wait till the field winnows a little bit and come in Super Tuesday. Is that where? And then places like Missouri.
Right. Super Tuesday, March 10th, March 17th, 60.
And he's got the money to stay in.
And he's got the money to stay in, right? And let's be honest, that's everybody wants to talk about
I'm
it.
a capitalist.
And so he says, you know, people tell him all the time, the first thing they want to do is beat Donald Trump, and then they tell him not to spend the money. So we're coming in. It is a strategy of winning the nomination, which is about delegates.
Ever been done before like this?
Never been done before like this. First time in modern history. 60-some% of the delegates are won after the first 4 states. We can go run for the governor of Iowa, or we can run for the Democratic nomination.
Interesting. When you talk about these races, you're a veteran of these statewide efforts. It matters who's on the top of that ticket. I think Claire McCaskill, probably one of the biggest headwinds was it mattered who was in the White House, and he was very popular in Missouri.
Absolutely. And I think that this time it is going to matter who is at the top of that ticket. And I think having Nicole running statewide will also help to supplement our opportunity to take back the governor's house and potentially take back the White House.
Now, I've always kind of operated from the thought of, Mark, if it's Joe Biden, then Missouri has a chance to be an 8 to 10 point state. If it's one of the more socialist candidates, I mean, America might be socialist. I don't think Missouri is. I don't think you can find a socialist in his home county, in Wayne County. If they did, they'd run him out. I don't see how you take Nicole Galloway, who's, she took this race on. She was the underdog running against an incumbent. I don't know how you saddle her with a Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren and expect her to have any chance to win.
No, not in Missouri. I mean, I think in some of the other parts of the country, a Bernie or Warren, might do well. But in Missouri, that's not the environment here.
Mike Bloomberg, interesting thing. I mean, to me as a person that follows politics, a person that can skip all those, and it always seems unfair that these 2 smaller states do get all this attention. He could realign how people run for president if you have the money, I guess, right?
Yeah, well, we've seen that time and time again. Money does change a lot of things, but yeah, and things have been changing rapidly since Trump especially.
Corbin, talking about this presidential race, I mean, you've been at election night on House races, governor's races, the top of that ticket. I think Missourians previously were much more willing to split their ticket, but something's happened over probably really since the Tea Party movement. Missourians pretty much with the national mood, maybe Missouri goes from a 5-point Republican advantage, maybe that advantage is going to 7, and then the national mood takes it from there. Trump being an outlier that just connects with people differently. Right. But the top of that ticket matters.
Yeah, the whole dynamic, though, I think is changing. I don't think you can look back 10 years even 20 years for certain that the presidential dynamic is really the same today as it was then. And so there's a lot of being changed, whether it's a Mike Bloomberg or the socialist end of the spectrum, and that makes a difference. And I agree, Missouri's not going that way.
So Joe Biden comes in. I think Joe Biden could cut that to a single digit if things went right for him.
Yeah, but he doesn't win.
If one of the other more socialist candidates wins, what happens?
I think it's a 2-digit.
Does Trump then surpass Lincoln by the largest margin ever in Missouri?
That's possible.
Yeah, I really think that could be the case.
Yeah.
Mike Bloomberg, interesting thing. I mean, it's something you've had some time to get your head around now. I do think that Bloomberg is probably not proven nationally enough like Biden is. I mean, Biden's a nice guy. Then whatever else you think of him. I do think he would run better than a Sanders or a Warren in Missouri, right?
No, I do. I think he would run better. I'm not convinced he would win. But here's what we see, and what I find interesting is he's loading a lot of money in a lot of different states. I've traveled several states here in the last few months, and you see Bloomberg commercials everywhere. That's having an impact. I mean,
he's. The ads. If I can jump in, it's not just the ads. It's the fact that we have over 30 people on staff here in Missouri. We have 5 offices opening. We're everywhere from being in Hayti, talking about, I know, right? So we're going everywhere. It's not.
Have your Hayti person eat at Chubby's. They'll thank me later.
They did. I think they did. So it's about building an infrastructure that let's talk Missouri for a second. In a post-apocalyptic world for Democrats after 16 and 18, having the resources to open offices, find staff, connect one-on-one. We've got almost 40 events in the next 15 days.
To me, I think it is very logical to say if Mike Bloomberg were the Democratic nominee, if he ran a campaign in Michigan, if he ran a campaign in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, he could flip those. I mean, those are naturally Democratic seats.
Right.
Trump just has a special connection, and maybe the other candidate, Hillary Clinton, might not have been the best candidate, but also she didn't do much campaigning there. Democrats just, if they have a decent candidate and they don't take their eye off those states, should be able to win them, right?
I think so. I think that the candidate that I think most Democrats are looking for, that moderate Republicans that are looking for, is the candidate that is tired of the chaos and they're looking for a president that can get it done.
No, I think there's something to that, Carl. I mean, the thing about Trump is, where we're from, they love him. He could be king of Southeast Missouri, Eastern Jackson County, Jefferson County. But I do think there are some folks, and some of these are Republicans, that there is just constantly some kind of chaos. And I think Trump plans it that way and likes it.
Yeah, no, I think he does. And I think he lives, eats, and breathes it, right? So I think he thinks it's to his advantage, and quite honestly, it has been.
Yeah, you can't argue with the results so far. Senator Josh Hawley can attest to that.
Right.
Let me ask you about something, though, Clean Missouri. Senate was up till 3 a.m. There was one outlet in Missouri that stayed there with them till the end. We don't need sanctimonious tweets or whatever, but we're there because we have a capitalist business and people expect that, not because it's a public good. But the reforms that came in, the Republicans saw Clean Missouri pass overwhelmingly. You had ethics reform mixed with redistricting. The Republicans were going to attack the redistricting. I thought the best argument they had was these were two different questions merged together. And the genius of Sean Nicholson to do it. But then Republicans come up with a plan, and they merge ethics reform and redistricting together.
Worked.
Okay, fair enough.
Worked. So here's, and I tell the Republicans it's their fault Clean Missouri passed in the first place. Clean Missouri did not pass based on redistricting.
No.
Because everybody talks about gerrymandering. Nobody, it's a good topic to talk about,
beholder,
but it's not
right?
a sale. Right? I mean, that's not what sells them. What sold them was one commercial that I ever saw. I never saw more than one commercial, and that's the guy in the box grabbing the dollars. And that's what sold Clean Missouri.
True.
And that was allowed to happen because the Senate, primarily the Senate, failed to pass lobbyist reform, even though the House gave it to them time and time
And
again.
you've consistently said that. I've heard you say that. Mark Dalton, I do think, though, it comes down to these campaigns are about money. I believe that there's no doubt Clean Missouri was well funded the first time. It will be funded to be defended. The Republicans, I think, some of them question, is there going to be the money there to if you put this on the ballot and you don't have a way to defend it at the ballot? I don't know what the is it worth the fight?
No, it seems like a game plan that's often played here is throw something on the ballot and then there's a lack of support for it on the ballot and it fails. Clean Missouri, was well organized. Well-funded, well-organized campaign, and they've continued to stay in contact with their base. So when this comes up again, the people that are going to try to, push this repeal of it, they're starting way behind.
I think that is fair. I mean, it is when you come to do this, you have some Republicans. Todd Graves very vocal, saying Carl Bearden was on the show saying this is bad. But really, they did not mount a campaign to defeat it, and it showed in the outcome.
Well, I think the outcome is the thing that I want to focus on because I hear time and time again, this passed, 1.4 million Missourians voted for it.
Sure.
And we talk about, well, now we're going to overturn an election. And I think that the GOP, as a party and as a political tactic, are fine with overturning an election when it benefits what they want to do. And then we hear on the other side of it, oh, well, wait a minute. We're sitting here trying to, this is a chaos of overturning this, but we're okay with that.
But if this was the Democrats, they would do the same thing. And the Republicans would be sanctimonious and, oh, the will of the people, the will of the people.
But it is the chaos again that I go back to of we're okay with doing it here, but we're not okay with doing it here. It's overturning an election here. I mean, I saw the other day that Marsha Blackburn, the senator down from Tennessee, is tweeting, we can't, it's just policies. We can't have a few people doing this. It's an overturn.
When I'm at home and I'm tired from working all week, Gussie's bedtime's a hard 9 o'clock.
Right.
If the Cardinals are playing, well, he can stay and watch the Cardinals. You've watched these things many times. The gerrymandering's in the eye of the beholder. No matter if you win the election, it was a great district. If you lose the election, it was gerrymandered. The Democrats would gerrymander. The Republicans. You know how you know who gerrymanders? Who's ever in charge.
I think when we take a look at it here, we can see that, as you said, the voters overwhelmingly approved Clean Missouri. And we have to take a look at it and say, if we have the auditor's office in a position to find a qualified demographer who can take a look at what's in the best interest, we're also talking about transparency here, where we can see how those numbers are pulled together and how we make these decisions on how we're going to redistrict. And I think it's important that we keep our doors open and allow everyone to understand how we make these decisions.
Mark Dalton, Senate goes to 3 of no compromise. It would almost be sad to see this PQ. Do you think that's where this ends up?
No, I don't think Gina Walsh wants to see a PQ, and I don't think Caleb Brown wants to see one either.
Carl Bearden, I think you may disagree with that.
Well, I think if it has to, it will, but I don't think that it has to.
There's really no way reasonable people could compromise on putting something before the voters.
The compromise, I don't believe the compromise is on Clean Missouri.
What has to be
the compromise is going to be on something else, and I don't know what that something else is today, but the compromise will be worked out. It'll be a trade on something else. It won't be a trade on Clean Missouri.
So how reasonable people going? With a minute left, who won the week?
I'm going to say the St. Louis sports fans with the All-Star game and the region in general. I think that it was a great deal for not just the city of St. Louis, but the region to bring in the All-Star game. Everybody, the concerts that happened, the crowds that did it. I'm just proud to be from the region. It would have been the
perfect weekend to bring Nolan Arenado to St. Louis. Who won the week?
I concur. We have to add in our amazing Chiefs and waiting to see what is going to happen.
Oh, yeah. Super Bowl edition next week. Who won the week?
Governor Parson, because I think in multiple polls, unrelated candidates, but also because he gets to go to the Super Bowl and cheer the Chiefs on.
Hey, he's a legit fan. That's not a fair weather governor. He's a legit fan. Who won the week?
I agree with all the sports stuff, but we'll throw in Caleb Jones, Statesman of the Year.
It was terrific. I'm going to echo those sentiments. It was an honor to honor somebody that truly is a good person and benefits the state. It was also Senator Gary Romine. Finished a very distinguished career. Nobody had a backbone like Gary Romine, forged from some of the same places that Carl and I are from, maybe a little lead shoved in there from the lead belt, but a terrific statesman. Going to the tax commission, he will be missed by the state. Don't miss us next week on This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics, sponsored by the Missouri Association of Career Fire Protection Districts, Spire, and Sterling Bank.